ecosystem in India, South India is very well off relative to other parts of the country. Obviously, Bombay, Maharashtra is strong, NCR is strong. But if you take the 5 southern states, there's a lot of wealth here to be catered to. It can be IT, it can be manufacturing, it can be real estate. And that's really the target market that we are aiming for.
Hello and a warm welcome to a very special podcast series, Unusual Suspects. I'm your host, Gaurav Chaudhary. This is a series about unraveling stories of entrepreneurs, investors, professionals, and philanthropists who are disruptors, yet not in your face. The disruptions have consistently delivered on the purpose and the mission they've embarked on. Their values are as strong as the mission. While they're ruthless in pursuing their ambition, they don't stray from being leaders who are not just admired for the vision and relentless pursuit, but also for how they're building an ecosystem of believers who consistently push the boundaries. In each episode, I speak to one such leader, talking to her or him or them about their businesses, lives, inspirations, interests, challenges, pivot moments and turning points, successes, failures, and of course, the little joys of life and work. It is as much about their personal life stories as about their entrepreneurial, professional, and philanthropic journeys. Unusual Suspects streams on Earshot.in, Spotify.com, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, which is now YT Music, Moneycontrol.com, and a host of other podcast streaming platforms and directories. For this episode, I'm delighted to have Arun Surendra, Chairman VST Group. Arun has led the VST Group as its Managing Director for the past 18 years. VST Group is a 114-year-old business house based in Bengaluru and is one of India's largest and most diverse automobile retail networks, representing 12 international brands. In the luxury segment, the group offers Porsche, Mercedes-Benz, Jaguar, Land Rover, Ducati, and now Maserati in the luxury automobile landscape in the South Indian market. In the mainstream segment, of course, it represents Volkswagen, Mahindra, Kia, BYD, Tata Trucks, and Honda Scooters, among others. And besides, VST Groups is a diversified group now. It has evolved as a major player in several industries, including manufacturing besides automotive, and also in the NBFC space. More of that later as we speak during the course of this conversation with Arun. Welcome to Unusual Suspects, Arun. Delighted to have you on the show.
Thanks, Gaurav. It's my pleasure to join you here. I'm looking forward to this. I've heard a lot about this podcast, but let's get started.
Thanks, Arun. Now, let me start off with a fundamental question for the benefit of our listeners and for my benefit too. What is the secret sauce behind VST Group's evolution as a major player in several industries? Automotive, of course, but also manufacturing, tractors and dealers, for instance. You are also present in the NBFC space, in education, and of course, corporate social responsibility programs. And it's a more than a century-old company. What keeps it going in a world where everything is changing so very rapidly? Arun?
Gaurav, I don't think there's any one secret sauce, but let me give you a little bit of background. First of all, I think I'm fortunate to have this opportunity to lead this group. As you mentioned, we are 114 years old. Our founding company was started in 1911. Over generations, I think my great-grandfather, my grandfather and his brothers, and my dad's generation have done well in capitalizing on the opportunity that presented it at that time. So early days was selling kerosene. Those who remember, pre-independence, electricity was not really available. Kerosene was the primary source of both lighting and cooking. We started our entrepreneurial journey at that point to the late 30s, early 40s, when we got into education and then automotive retail, even prior to independence. Then obviously when India opened up, we partnered with the 3 big business houses in India. Tata Motors for their trucking business, Hindustan Motors for the Ambassador cars, and then Mahindra's for the Jeeps. So I think that the secret sauce, as you called it, I think is really each generation playing its role in nurturing that business, capitalizing it on the opportunity available at that time, and then handing that over to whoever came in the next phase. So I think we've done well. We've obviously expanded a lot in the last 20 years. We all know India's growth story since the early 2000s. India didn't have, if I talk of the automotive side, we did not have the opportunity or the options available to buy different brands, different cars. We didn't have the road network to enjoy them. That obviously has come now, and we've been trying to cater to India's complete population. So we have a large portfolio in the super rich luxury top end variant. We also have a large exposure in the mid budget. So I think the key really, Gaurav, I think is can we as entrepreneurs identify a market need for something, and then try and fulfill that need within the right environment. I fundamentally believe making money is a byproduct. If you capture the right opportunity, I think wealth will get created. I hope that answers your first question, Gaurav.
Absolutely. Also brings me to the next question. You talked about the purpose of doing business, and it should not just be profit maximization, as some people tend to chase. My question is more about, and since you have been at the center of running this, and you are, you have a ringside view of how people are spending. What's your view about the current state of the broader economy? If you look at consumer spending, which remains the strongest edifice of the India growth story, and when households don't spend, India's growth sputters, and when households spend, India's growth actually takes off. What's your view? You stand at a vantage point of household spending, particularly at a space where there's a lot of upward mobility in spending, because yesterday's essentials, if I may say so, yesterday's aspirationals, if I may say so, have become today's essentials in many ways. So what's your view about the state of the economy seen from a consumer and household spending point of view, Arun?
Gaurav, I'll try and answer that question in relation to the field that we operate in on the automotive side. So we cater to the two-wheeler segment, which is often a commuting bike. I mean, Honda scooters is in that category. We cater to the Tata commercial vehicle business, so it's movement of goods and services, in South India. Then we have the mid-budget cars, which is also partly a commuter requirement and partly a lifestyle product. Then obviously at the top end with 5 brands, largely on the lifestyle. I've been in business now for 20 years, Gaurav. I've seen a fundamental shift from people from a base level car with the entry level model within that range to people moving to the top end. And I think a lot of this has to do with consumer education, consumer awareness, not only from style, but from safety. 20 years ago, whether we need 2 airbags or 4 airbags, wearing seat belts, was frowned upon as an inconvenience. I think today everybody looks at cars also as what are the safety features they give you. So consumer preferences is shifting. Consumer spending, I think, is a direct correlation to the prosperity of the economy. India, fortunately, in the last 20 years, I think has gotten richer as a country. I think politically and economically, regulatory-wise, people have made the right decisions that there's more money in consumers' hands. And I'm not talking of just of the upper class. I think even the upper middle and the middle class have or are earning more money than they did prior. As standard of living has gone up in the last 5 years, I'll talk of post-COVID, last 3 years, there was a bump after COVID, and there was 10 reasons why people spent more money. But fundamentally, I think the fundamentals of the economy are strong, that we are seeing a consistent growth in all our product lines over the last 3 to 5 years. But if you take the graph from the early 2000s, there's only one way going up. But let me also put that in context, Gaurav. The rate of growth of any one business has a lot to do with what's happening within that. So our latest opportunity here is Maserati, which is obviously a lifestyle product, extremely high end.
Absolutely, yeah.
That for consumer is not necessarily a must-have car. It's I want to have that car, right? So when you talk of that bracket and their consumer pattern, that's different. The price elasticity is much more. I mean, where the price is 5% more or 5% less, I think that consumer bracket has enough money. But that can't be said at a Mahindra level or a Volkswagen or a BYD or a Kia, where price sensitivity is much higher. So to answer your question, I think overall, the auto industry is on a positive trend. This year, there's definitely been a slowdown in the general economy, the automotive, but that has to be taken in context to a very rapid over 18-20% growth over the last 3 years. So this year, if we are at the single digits, it looks at it being a bad year, but in theory, we've had a very good year 3 years prior to this.
Absolutely. So there seems to be a very high base effect at play here in terms of the moderation in growth rate for so far as the luxury automotive segment is concerned. But my question is more on Maserati. What is the strategy for Maserati, which is the latest inclusion in your very impressive portfolio of 11 global brands, including Jaguar, Porsche, Mercedes, and Ducati? You briefly alluded to it in response to the previous question, but specifically, what is it? What does Maserati add to VST Group? What does it bring to the VST Group? Arun?
Yeah. So Gaurav, I mean, most of us who are automotive aficionados will know about Maserati, just like Porsche or Mercedes. I mean, the heritage goes back many, many decades. They've not been very aggressive in India over the last 10 years, although they have been here. For us specifically, I think it's managing the ecosystem, Gaurav. We've got a large customer base in South India, Mercedes-Benz, Porsche, Jaguar, and Land Rover. Most of these customers at some point will look at upgrades. They look at what's next after they've owned, two luxury cars with the same portfolio. Maserati has a very unique proposition in the sense because of their racing heritage and their Italian heritage. Most luxury brands in India are German, obviously the three big German brands. There's very few from the Italian stable that come out. I mean, on the top of my mind, obviously, there's Ferrari and Lamborghini, and Maserati is one of those that come out from the same part of Italy. From a product perspective, anyone who's sat in a Maserati or driven one will clearly tell the difference between Italian racing heritage and German or British racing heritage. So you'll see a big design change. The way the engines are made and the cars are meant to be driven all have distinct features. From our perspective, I think it is, if there is a section of society that's looking at spending the money on what the next lifestyle brand is, I'm hoping, Gaurav, to cater to that market by positioning Maserati not only in Bangalore, we will have a setup in Hyderabad as well, follow up with Chennai a couple of years down the road to cater to those markets. And we cover all of South India with Maserati, all the 5 states. The big consumer markets obviously are Bangalore, AP, Telangana area, and then obviously Tamil Nadu. The ecosystem in India, I mean, South India is very well off relative to other parts of the country. Obviously, Bombay, Maharashtra is strong, NCR is strong. But if we take the 5 southern states, there's a lot of wealth here to be catered to. It could be IT, it can be manufacturing, it can be real estate. And that's really the target market, Gaurav, that we are aiming for.
Arun, there's also, while the opportunities and the growth expansion possibilities in the luxury market is quite well established now, and that needs no emphasis. That argument is fairly well established because we are seeing increasing premiumization of Indian consumers, or at least the demand from Indian consumers about goods that they want to buy and consume. But from the other side of the aisle, if you have to move to the other side of the fence, from a business point of view, what are the headwinds that you come across, and what are the biggest challenges facing the luxury auto industry, which is essentially what your main business area? How do you see these factors impacting your group's business outlook in the near term? First, the challenges that you come across or you are encountering, and how can this be addressed, and how is it going to affect your group's outlook? Arun?
I mean, Gaurav, so headwinds in any industry, I mean, follows the same trend line, right? Most people who have disposable income still have a business they're running, that they're catering to or they're running. So anytime there's a slowdown in just economic activity in their business, it has a ripple effect even on the luxury side. So the timeline can be a bit varied. So give me an example of this year. With India overall, I think the economy has done exceptionally well the last 3 years. The automotive business has also kept pace with that and has done very well. This year, if you look at across industry, manufacturing specifically, trading, you've had a higher costs, input costs for a lot of manufacturing businesses. Globally, supply chain costs have gone up because shipping costs with the conflict in the Middle East, Ukraine, etc. So you take any of those fundamental international blips or slowdowns that you see, it has a ripple effect in the Indian economy as well. Our stock market's done well. Our political system is very stable. So those are two positives. But overall, I think the economic growth in India has been a couple of percentage points below what was expected a couple of years ago. How does that affect the luxury automotive? To some extent, it will. You have to understand people who are buying these cars are people at the top of the game. They are leaders in their own businesses. They have an eye for their image. They have an eye for their cost structures. So anytime you see a rather slowdown in the economy, you will have a slowdown in the consumer pattern here as well. That's one. Two, I think any brand that is not able to keep up with the latest offering automatically brings a slowdown. And I'll give you a more specific example here, Gaurav. I mean, the electrification of the automotive industry was being talked of very positively 3-4 years ago. We're all aware of the slowdown on the EV side in the last 18 months. It's happened in China, it's happened in Europe, in North America, it's happening in India. Indians haven't adapted to the EV structure as quick, but any company that has an EV out there that is one model below the best generation will have a slowdown. So from headwinds, I mean, technology is a strong headwind that we see happening if the manufacturers cannot keep up. Overall, any slowdown in international or global trade will be a headwind that will get affected to India. The third one, which is more domestic, I think, is our tax rates within the country. The luxury automotive industry, as you know, Gaurav, is highly taxed. Most of these brands, Maserati specifically, Porsche as well, Ducati also, are not on a CKD unit. They are all CBUs. In the sense, they are imported fully. There's no local assembly. So anytime there is a change in tax structure, it hasn't happened for the last few years, will also affect us in a big way. So from headwinds, I think it's not a slowdown this year, but the growth definitely is not at the pace of the last 3 years, at least. Gaurav?
Yeah, absolutely. Arun, you mentioned Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, and essentially the 4 southern states or 5 southern states. It remains the VST Group's key focus areas. Are you planning to expand beyond these states? Because there's a large market of the kind of products that you're dealing with in the luxury automotive segment in North India too. So is there a plan to expand your footprint into these areas as well, Arun?
So Gaurav, there's always opportunity that we look for. Obviously, we've traditionally been a South Indian player, Bangalore, Madras being our traditional playgrounds. Obviously, we've expanded now to covering all the southern states. As you know, our manufacturing business, VST Tillers and Tractors, is a national player. We've got dealerships across the country. We've got regional offices across the country. So on the automotive side, we don't have a footprint outside South India, but on our manufacturing side, we do. To answer your question, are we looking at expansion outside South for the automotive? There's definitely projects in the pipeline. There are partnerships with manufacturers we are talking with. When the right opportunity comes, either an expansion of the network or entering a new city or state, we will consider it. And those announcements will come as and when things get finalized. But it's something that we're definitely looking at, Gaurav, because opportunity as such is across India available at the moment.
Arun, the luxury automobile market is also getting highly competitive, and and if I may say, it's a little crowded. Not really crowded in the conventional sense, but it's getting very, very competitive because there's also new wealth that is getting created. We have a swelling upper middle class community now in the country because of the rising income levels and also spending ability. What are your group strategies to navigate this burgeoning market? The market is growing, of course, but also it's also getting increasingly competitive from a business point of view. How do you intend to, or what is the strategy to stand out from the crowd?
So Gaurav, with our portfolio, there are some brands that have the opportunity to personalize your automotive to a very high extent. I'll be more specific over here. Both Porsche does this, and Maserati gives that opportunity to the customers. Mercedes and Land Rover also do it, but to a lesser extent, is where you can completely personalize your car according to your taste, whether it's the threading on the seat or choosing the leather color of your seats. And I'm not talking of choosing from 5 different leather options, possibly choosing from 50 different shades of black or gray, to choosing one of 200 color palettes that'll have to give you a different tinge of blue. So from a consumer perspective, I think if VST is a group they come to, they've got a range of portfolios to choose from all the brands that we cater to, SUVs and cars and sports cars. Second point, within this ecosystem of brands that we give them, you can specialize or personalize your car, including with your initial on the doormat, on the footrest, on the headrest, on the gear lever. So personalizing that to your own taste. From an Indian consumer, Gaurav, as you know, we are one of the youngest population countries in the world. The average age of the Indian in the last 10 years is really in their 30s. So you've got a good 30, 40 years of people's lifetime to cater to. High net worth individuals in the South are a growing class. Our footprint is, or the key to our footprint is to being as close as we can to customers, not just being in one city. I'd rather be in 5 cities. So be as close as I can to them, give them a portfolio that they can choose from, give them a personalized option that they can choose from. And I think this is what the group Gaurav sort of brings to the consumers in South India. I don't want to call myself a one-stop solution for all your brands, but in a sense, I am trying to do that. I'm trying to give you an entry-level car. I'm trying to give you a commuting bike. I'm trying to give you a mass volume car. And I'm also trying to give you the top-end luxury car. So in a sense, if a customer wants to look at his entire automotive industry needs, at some point, the group should be able to fulfill his requirements. Gaurav?
Arun, given the very distinguished legacy of your group, what are the core values and principles that have been the guiding force behind the VST Group's leadership ideals since its inception? And more specifically, how have these values adapted to the evolving automotive landscape and also your other business interests, Arun?
I think this goes back a bit to my early answer, Gaurav, to your first question. I think my family won, but largely I think the leaders that have come through the system in the last 100 years, I think have really catered to this. Fundamentally, I think philosophy we look at is we partner with other automotive brands or even our manufacturing business to say we're in this for the long term. We're not in this for the short term. Fundamentally, if you ever take a long-term view, whether it's work relationships or personal relationships, your outlook to everyday life is different. You're not looking at shortcuts. You're looking at what's better for the long term. You're not looking at making a quick buck. You're looking at lifetime value of a customer. So from principles that we have, and it comes back from multi-generations, Gaurav, is myself included, my leadership team, we try to instill that with our employees first, and then with customers to say, things may not be perfect in the short term. You may not have the best deal, but in the longer term, we will look after your needs in a better way. It goes to my employees as well. If you're looking at growth, opportunities, you can join me as a sales consultant at the entry level. You can rise all the way up to 7 levels at a CEO or a president level. So if you take principles or the legacy that we're built on, I think a lot of it can be transparent, and that's something that I personally believe in. No matter how harsh the conversation is try and be as transparent as you can. It helps clear the air. Number two, I think, is to be fair. I think there's a lot of, in any human relationships, Gaurav, there's a lot of bias that comes in. At a leadership level, you have to be conscious of that bias and not let that bias play a role in your decision making. I think these are things that the group has relied on, and I think these are things that I rely on to guide me as well. Hopefully, I can do the job that everybody else did, Gaurav, which is take this business over the next 10, 15 years and then give it on to the next generation.
Absolutely, Arun, and you should never allow prejudice to come in the way of your strategic vision and decision-making ideals. Final question is on the manufacturing side, which is VST Dealers Tractors. Can you give us a sense of the initiatives here, including the very innovative self-driving electric tractors, which kind of seeks to address challenges in agriculture, both at home and abroad? What is the kind of problem that you were trying to solve here, and how scalable has it been so far, Arun?
Yeah, the tractor and tiller business, Gaurav, is actually very exciting. I think it's vastly different than our automotive side, because in the automotive business, we're largely a trading business. You're buying a product and then selling it to a customer. You can't really innovate too much. But on our tractor business, I think there's a lot of innovation that happens. Fundamentally, India is an agrarian society where more and more people today are not going back to the farmland. They're moving into the cities for various opportunities. You see this in any developing or developed nation. The number of people that work in farms over time reduces, and the farms really get mechanized. We call it the mechanization of the Indian farmland. We don't have a self-automated tractor in India. It's actually a self-driving tractor in the US. That we have an investment in a company there that is selling that, and we are the manufacturers for that company. In due course, I think this electric tractor, whether it's self-driven or not, I think there's an opportunity for it in India. It goes back to just you don't have enough hands in the field. As software and AI get better, you can program a moving vehicle on a farm. Unlike the road, it has no moving parts. And when you're driving a car on the road, you have pedestrians and cyclists and motorcycles, you have distractions. Whereas on a farmland, it's pretty quiet and serene, so you can do a much better job there. The potential really, Gaurav, is can you bring in smart technology, which we all have on our iPhones and laptops and robots in the manufacturing side, to the farming community to address the question of inefficiency. I mean, we know Indian farmers, our land holdings are so subdivided. The efficiency is poor. It's one of the poorest around the world. Idea is, can I use this opportunity in the mechanization of farming equipment to equip the farmer to get more yield for his product, water the crops in half the time that he does today with bullock carts and things like that. So it's an evolving area, Gaurav. I don't think we've seen enough technology in the Indian agrarian society yet. Cost is definitely a reason, but also I think awareness is another reason. A lot of Indian farmers still are unaware of the products out there that they can use. So our role really, Gaurav, as the chairman of that company is how do I help the Indian industry, especially the farming industry, evolve from where we are today, which is very manual oriented, to a far more mechanical way of doing business.
Absolutely, Arun. Arun, thank you so much for taking the time out and dropping by to have this conversation with us and sharing your deep insights and perspective on a variety of issues, from the luxury automobile market in India and the way it is expanding, and also the challenges and opportunities in this segment, including the strategy for Maserati, which is the latest inclusion in a very impressive portfolio of 11 global manufacturers and brands, and also on the kind of problems you intend to solve through dealers and tractors, including the very innovative self-driving electric tractors. Thank you, Arun, so much for taking the time out and taking part in this podcast.
Gaurav, thank you very much. I enjoyed talking to you. Look forward to staying in touch.